Hey everyone, welcome to another podcast episode, No Limit Selling. And today we have Luis Baez. He is a revenue enablement specialist, and we want revenue. Luis, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, my friend.
So, right now, at this particular moment, we're recording this in the beginning of March 2025. And I happen to be sitting in Toronto, Canada. And a lot of people are freaking out because President Trump keeps on threatening to impose these tariffs, which is creating uncertainty. And right now in sales, we need people to kind of sharpen their sales skills and not get distracted and not lose sight of the ball. So it's a very kind of special time for geopolitics and also commerce in the world today.
Yes, absolutely. I think that we're seeing the advent and the rise of AI everything. And I think there's even more of a need for that personalization and authenticity in the way that we connect with people. Because to your point, people need to sharpen their skills on the sales front. But I think also on the consumer and the buyer front, there is certainly opportunity to elevate their experience.
Absolutely. And I think it really comes down to that. It's not so much the transaction anymore. It's the experience of the transaction that seems to be having a lot more uh, it's weighted heavier on that particular one element. Like I can do a transaction and it's painless and it's happened, and I've got a product that I like, very nice. But I could have the same experience where I just feel like, wow, they really listened to me and I really enjoyed hanging out with Luis, and that creates more of a lasting connection.
Yeah, I think that what is going to be really important to reconcile is that we're leaning into a lot of the automations and the features that really alleviate cognitive load from creating or selling or engaging or prioritizing. But that does not align with the way that buyers need to buy. You started this conversation by setting the context of what's happening in the state of the world, and so when you think about what it means for someone to invest money when there is uncertainty, when things are unclear, there needs to be this deeper element of trust.
Yes.
Whoever I am going to invest with needs to really get what I'm going through. Needs to really sit with me in my anxiety and my hesitation. And right now, the technologies that exist around automating and streamlining these things just are missing that human element. And indeed, buying is a very emotional process, right? Because if two companies or people come with the exact same solution, same statistics, and the same price, I'm going to buy from that person who took the time to really understand and align with me in this journey.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times data is everywhere. And what's really important is insight. So, as a salesperson, if you can actually process the data and say, "Well, this is what it means to you, Mister Customer," that's valuable, and people go, "Oh, wow, I never thought of it that way." And I think that's also something that we need to train ourselves to do. Is how can I make this sales call relevant to the person I'm talking to in a way that I give them an insight? If I can give them an insight, then they're like, "I want to talk more."
Yeah. Exactly. If you can teach them something or help them see or understand something that they didn't before, if you can call out the spinach between their teeth that no one else bothered to, right? That is
Right.
certainly how you'll gain trust.
So, one of the barriers right now here in Canada, especially, is they passed legislation that you cannot email anybody unless you have their consent. So, I can understand in the day and age of I'm doing bulk emails and I'm going to bother 9 million people, but I'm trying to do business with Luis, and if you happen to be in Mississauga, just down the street, and I send you an email that was unsolicited, that is a crime.
Yeah. Absolutely. This day and age, we have to think about privacy and we have to think about consent, right? I need to consent to an engagement with you before I can consider anything that you might have to offer.
Which makes selling 10 times harder. So, how do you help your clients navigate that in terms of, okay, I've identified, like right across the street, looking at the building right now is Salesforce. So, if I've identified a VP over there, certainly one way is snail mail, The other way is to
Mhm.
pick up a phone. But what's a strategy you recommend to kind of get that ability to have that conversation?
There is, it's a multi-pronged strategy, really. When I think about outbound prospecting and
Mm,
building relationships that I don't already have within my network, right? Once I've exhausted the connections I have, then I'm looking at the opportunity to engage with these folks on multiple levels. I'm looking at engaging with you on LinkedIn if you're active, making sure that I'm also present and top of mind so it's not entirely out of the blue when I drop a message into your inbox.
mm,
I'm also going to look at what conferences is this person attending, right? So I'm going to look to rub shoulders with you, and I'm going to look for that opportunity to build relationships that way. And then certainly be thinking about any sort of promotional efforts that you make, being really in line with the way that that person prefers to receive information, right? And so advertising could be it. It could be that you are inviting them to an event that you might be hosting, an executive roundtable or something of the sort. But I think that this day and age, the most important thing is before asking for anything, you've got to anchor yourself on value, right? You can ask someone for advice, or you can say, "Hey, VP across the street, I saw a headline that you just launched this new product, and it sounds like you might need some support in getting the messaging and everyone aligned behind it to hit these." Market penetration goals that you might have. I've worked with companies doing this 10,000 times over. If you're finding yourself struggling with X, Y, or Z, we should get on a call. Right. And I think that that's the important thing is like recognizing what that person is going through, recognizing and anticipating what they might need, and making yourself relevant that way.
yeah, I think that's really the key word there was relevant. Make yourself relevant to them.
Yeah.
And because oftentimes we are in our own universe and see the way there's a really good quote from the Talmud. We do not see the universe as it is, we see it as we are. And
Mm,
oftentimes what we think is relevant and our marketing team tells us is relevant isn't always relevant to our clients.
yeah.
And so we really need to step into their shoes and figure out, oh, this is a pivotal issue for them. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we get caught up in the minutia of like the deliverables and the things that we can tinker with, right? The things that are tangible. But we have to really paint the picture of transformation whenever we engage with someone. It's like, I can do these things for you in the vein of taking you from struggling with these things that are keeping you up at night to thriving, and humming along with the solution in place. And that's going to look like a series of services, tools, processes that I implement.
Brilliant. So, your pedigree, where you came from, I was looking at your bio, and you've worked with a bunch of startups that have become, super large organizations like LinkedIn. Tell us a little bit about your background, what you
Yeah,
did for these
absolutely.
organizations, how you helped them grow.
Yeah, I was recruited to work at LinkedIn and was part of their mid market sales team. And so that's where I got used to managing a portfolio of multi-million-dollar deals and looking at longer term partnerships. Then I stepped into enterprise sales. I was recruited at Google, and that's where I expanded a book of business from 50 million in investments to over 100. And that's when I really cut my teeth in enterprise sales. I was recruited at Uber to repeat that playbook, and then I was recruited at Tesla to help build out their North American field sales program and team. And at that point, that's when I stepped into sales leadership. Shortly thereafter, I stepped into revenue enablement. I stepped away from climbing that ladder, thinking that I
Mm.
wanted to be chief revenue officer, and really finding my strength and my superpowers in sitting at this intersection of operations, sales, and marketing, and looking at aligning all of the tools and the training and certifications and even the customer experience around unlocking and accelerating revenue. And so I took all of that big company, Fortune 500, multinational sort of thinking, and I bottled that up for mid-sized firms and for solopreneurs and sidepreneurs so that they could think about how to leverage these sort of strategies for scaling their own businesses and making impacts in their own communities.
So let's go back to LinkedIn. So, who were the customers you were selling to? You were selling LinkedIn as a service to sales organizations?
I was part of the marketing solutions team. So LinkedIn has several streams of revenue, and I was part of the team that sold advertising on the platform. And my customers specifically were in business and industrial markets. And so I worked with manufacturers, and I worked with electric companies and oil and gas in helping them to leverage the platform for up leveling the way that they marketed and communicated to their customer base.
So, LinkedIn ads, do they work?
Absolutely.
And how much fuel do you need to give a campaign before you can figure out if it's working or not?
I think that you start with a test budget at whatever level feels comfortable. Certainly, if you have a sizable budget of 5K, that's where you'll get more data, right?
Mm.
The bigger the budget, the more data you get to work with. The important thing to think about when it comes to LinkedIn is twofold. One, the audience. This is where the players play. They're on the platform actively seeking to network, actively seeking information and resources to elevate the ways that they show up in their organizations. So the mindset is there, the appetite is there. The other thing that's really important is context. You can deliver the same message on LinkedIn as you would in any other channel, but the context of this is where the players play, this is where there's an appetite for performance and results. That is where you start to really see an up level of engagement. And so, with the right messaging and with the right layers of targeting, you can get in front of those people who are actively making decisions, sitting on budgets, and solving the problems that you solve for.
And LinkedIn, you need to send another check to uh, Luis for doing that nice promo for you. So going back to LinkedIn, because a lot of people that are listening to this, they're sales guys, marketing guys, and gals that want more leads coming into the pipeline. And certainly, one way is brute force, pick up the phone and do. But if you can have a good marketing campaign that actually gets people to put up their hands saying, I'm interested. So would the methodology be okay? We're advertising on LinkedIn to VPs of sales and chief revenue officers because we want to sell sales training. Do we go from ad to call, or do we go from ad to some kind of piece of marketing material that creates insight, and then from that to call? Like, what you worked with a lot of companies. What do you recommend?
Yeah, I think that if you're just getting started, the name of the game is awareness. You're building your reputation, and you can't jump into lead generation right away. You jump into lead gen through a retargeting effort, meaning you
Mm.
run a campaign, you get a bunch of your content exposed to an audience, and then you target that audience, or you retarget that audience with an invitation to then jump on a call with you. And that's going to be really important because you don't ask someone to move in with you on the first date, right? There is this way of naturally building relationships, and you certainly want to apply those laws of relationship building to your marketing campaign. And so, first things first is establishing relevance. If you're going to run an ad in the vein of building awareness, think about delivering insights, whether it's a PDF, could be a deck that you share
Right.
that is loaded with frameworks and insights that help to elevate someone's consciousness around a problem or see a solution that they couldn't find on their own. And when you then position your credentials around that and your capacity around that, then you earn the opportunity to invite them to a call. It could be that the last slide in that deck is that call to action. And in addition to that, you're also retargeting the audience that engaged with that deck. You can also use that deck as a post on LinkedIn and earn leads organically. And so I would do these things in tandem. I would be running the ads and I would be posting just to help elevate your profile on all ends.
So, what are your thoughts on the phone? Because the phone is like just an amazing, beautiful thing, and getting on a call with someone is really, really important. But uh, so here's why I'm asking it. I was talking to Jeb Blount, who's like the prospecting guy, sales guy, and he was saying that a lot of senior VPs have stopped checking their email because of the AI revolution. That there's so much bombarding their inboxes. They just said, "Okay, I'm just doing internal stuff, my customer stuff, everything else, cutting it off." So it kind of reduces the channels. So how do you? What are your thoughts on the phone? Just dialing the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, good luck getting someone who doesn't have, filters for robocalls
Mm,
and who actually answers numbers from numbers that, answers calls from numbers that are unknown. I think that there's that same challenge, right? In order to get someone on the phone, you've got to be tactful in terms of catching them, right? If you have their direct line in an office, and you can catch them between meetings, before meetings, or after meetings, if you can time it that way, certainly, lean into that opportunity. I would never say no to pulling that lever. I also want to paint the reality of
mm,
that. You just identified that people are being very discerning and very protective of their time and applying filters and do not disturb features and all of these things. And so the name of the game again is relevance, and thinking about how do I message one to many as much as I can in the ways that I post and engage on LinkedIn. And how do I then invite someone to a conversation? That's the way that you're going to get them on the phone. It has to be earned. The cold calling, again, I'm not going to deny that it works. And I won't deny that there is a specific skill set that I would invest in developing there,
mm.
depending on which industry you serve. Some of them are going to be more tethered to their desks and therefore their phones. I would never say don't do it. I would just say do it with greater intelligence and eyes open about the fact that people are playing defense. And so I would still implore you to explore the ways that you become relevant and earn your calls.
Absolutely. And certainly I work with a lot of people that are actually setting appointments, and
Mhm.
it still works, but it is a grueling kind of way to do it. So,
Yeah.
Luis, what are some AI tools that we should be aware of that make this whole process of getting in front of customers, having those conversations easier?
We can certainly look at all the ways that you can leverage CRMs and marketing campaigns and advertising campaigns. You can look at leveraging AI to enhance the copy. You can look at feeding AI all the data from any marketing campaigns that you've run to help it analyze that data and make recommendations for improving your messaging. The thing is that nothing will replace getting in touch with the customer or having direct contact, and
Right,
so everything has to be in that vein of how do I become and how do I interrupt their sort of day-to-day expectation? How do I stand out from the 50,000 people that are bombarding them with probably the same template messaging? And how do I again establish the authentic sort of connection? So looking at ways to, yes, leverage the AI to build up the list of contacts, to gather the intelligence about their profiles and their online activity and all of that, and leverage that information to then get in front of them, let's say via personalized video, where within LinkedIn, for example, as you're messaging them, or via email using a solution like Video Ask or Loom, you start to interrupt that expectation around like what it is that you've got to say or how it is that you engage, and you show face, right? And you record a direct message to them as part of your process, right?
right.
The first message might be, hey, Umar, I noticed that you spoke on such and such a show on this topic, and it just so happens that I just published a white paper around this. I'm curious, have you thought about these problems? If not, I'm happy to share insights from the white paper with you, right? And if you get consent, yeah, I'd love to learn more. Great. That's an opportunity to disrupt what they might think would be an automated drop by
Right.
getting on camera and say, Umar, thank you so much for the opportunity to share these insights with you. Here are three specific points that I think you're going to find useful based on what I learned from you in listening to your interview. But check everything else out, and when you're ready, I'd actually love to have a conversation with you, and explore if there are any insights that are missing from this report that I need to think about next time, right? That is where you establish reciprocity. I'm giving you something, I'm asking for feedback. Tell me I've got spinach between my teeth. I'm not selling you on anything. What I'm doing is encouraging conversation.
Right.
And if I am really good at what I do, I might even inspire you to respond back with a video.
So yeah, I personally use BombBomb as one of the video solutions that you can customize a message, and also if you have something pre-recorded that's talking about a particular topic, it's nice to be able to drop that in. So here's what I'm thinking is, as we reach out to organizations, one of the problems that I see is, and I'd love your thoughts on it, is that let's say you've got a sales organization where you've got a VP of sales, maybe you got three directors of sales, and you got three distinct teams out there. And I believe that there is uh, sales trapped within the organization. And one of the areas is trapped is, you know, are there particular individuals in your sales team that maybe have an area of weakness where they know how to, let's say, negotiate, but for whatever reason their mindset, their self-worth, they're just not as good at it as they could be, that if we could give them strength there, that they would actually close more deals. So one is shortcomings within individuals in the organization could be one area. Another area could be is, how well does sales and marketing get along? Are they like collaborating in a way there's a nice feedback loop? Or
Mhm.
is it like the leads you're giving us suck? And, you couldn't close a deal if your life depended on it. So there are like two examples of where revenue might be trapped if you can fix it. Where else
Mhm.
do you think revenue could be trapped within a team?
Yeah, I think you've identified all of it. It's like the silos, whether it's like geographic silos, departmental silos, and even silos and leadership approaches, right? Some leaders within an organization are going to be a lot more generous with and transparent with the things that their teams are operating on versus others, right? I find that the great sort of equalizer is going to be transparency and intelligence. And so when I look at a situation like this and I'm looking to engage with the sales organization that I know is experiencing these things, I'm looking to engage with leadership and explore what their coaching looks like. Have you implemented a coaching program so that we can identify that one master negotiator in that one region and we can start to pull on that thread and replicate that
Mm,
success? How
brilliant.
do we also then look at the opportunity to pull messaging and how customers react to messaging and deliver that insight to marketing? Right. So I'm looking to sort of punctuate all of these problems. And then my solution and my anecdote in a situation like this, the lowest hanging fruit, is to implement a revenue intelligence system like Gong that allows you to analyze calls. It will help you excavate those insights that you can deliver to marketing so that we can look at what that handoff looks on leads and qualification looks like, so that we can then also start to replicate those good behaviors across the different stages of the sale, right? And we can start to exemplify stronger performers. We can also implement scorecards so that sales leaders can step in and as they're listening to calls, they can help someone track their performance and improvement over time. Right. And so one solution, AI driven, that allows you to answer multiple sort of things in the situation that you just described to me, all those silos.
Brilliant. Because I think oftentimes we're looking at investing in shinier objects when there's actually revenue trapped within the organ. If we can solve that first.
Yeah.
The last question I wanted to ask you is, the world is changing very, very quickly. I was just listening to Ray Dalio. He was saying you will not recognize the world 5 years from now. And he's a
Yeah.
good predictor of the future. He says, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be way different. So when we implement new solutions, oftentimes one of the barriers that comes up is people's fear of new things
Mhm.
and just automatically assuming you're trying to get rid of me as an employee. You want to automate this. So, do you have an anecdote of how a new initiative was released in an organization where they did it properly, where people are like, okay, I get this, I want to support it? Do you have a success story like that?
Yeah, I can definitely. Yes, when I think about particularly around AI, there's a lot of apprehension twofold. One is the authenticity of the ways that I do things and communicate things. But then also to your point, am I replacing myself? I think that we have to really shift the mindset of, you know, the typewriter had the same reaction, that
Yes.
was met with the same reaction, right? The internet was met with the same reaction, etc. And so here's your opportunity to be innovative and lean into this by learning and adapting these tools and these methods and these processes. Not only do you set yourself up for success here, but you'll set yourself up for success anywhere else, right? You need to look
I
at the
knew it. I
opportunity.
knew you were trying to get rid of me.
Yeah,
Just
get rid
kidding.
of me. Right. If you want to get rid of me, great, but also train me. Train
Yeah.
me so I can do this job really well everywhere else I go. Right. And you have to align with people's mindsets around that, especially this day and age where, people are very aware that they have options and, the grass is always going to be greener elsewhere. So let me enjoy this green grass here. Sit with me and vibe with me. And I think that the experiences that I have had in leading trainings on like how to train GPT, how to leverage GPT for client calls, for
Mm.
preparation of client collateral, and things of that nature, or even setting up customer facing chatbots. The way that I've been able to shift the conversation is, again, emphasizing we get ahead of this and that's how we stay ahead. But then also looking at the opportunity to elevate and advance what's going on right now. So I really keep my eye on the prize right now. There's the bag, there's the launch, there's whatever is the priority right now. Let's solve for this. Because to your point, whatever happens from here on in is going to be nebulous, but it's always been that way. The only thing that we ever have control over is the here and the now. And so I don't live in the past because that's not always fruitful. And I don't worry about the future. I try to really sort of anticipate as best as I can and trust myself to pivot as needed when things arise.
Superb. Luis, thank you so much for being on the show. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm looking forward to our next.
Thank you, Omar.